Good afternoon. My name is Kent Dix, and I'm CEO of Life365. And Life365 is an omni-channel virtual first platform, meaning we're trying to enable proactive and preemptive healthcare to scale to larger populations of patients, predominantly at home. So, as we may know, hospital systems are consolidating right now. There's an unprecedented exit of clinicians since the pandemic. 68% of hospitals, US hospitals, are in financial distress. 25% of the hospitals are consolidating in the last 25 years. And we've lost 177,000 providers or clinicians since 2020, since the pandemic. It's estimated that we'll have a nursing shortage of almost 800,000 bedside nurses by 2022. And on top of that, the population's getting older. We're graduating 10,000 people per day that are turning 65. 1 in 5 US citizens will be of the age of 65 or older by 2030. 60% of adults have one or more chronic diseases. In fact, 72% of adults that are 65 or older have one or more chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, congestive heart failure, COPD. And at least 1 in 3 seniors have 5 or more clinicians or providers. 36% of US adults take greater than 5 medications. We have to couple this with the fact that, I think we're spending close to $4.5 trillion in healthcare spend right now. And by 2027, it's estimated that we might be getting up to $6 trillion in healthcare spending. That's way over 20 to 22% of the GDP, which is unsustainable. So Medicare, Medicaid, CMS has come up with new ways of trying to do pay for performance, which is readmissions, meaning that if somebody comes into back in the hospital within 30 days with the same condition, the clinician is most likely not going to get paid for that second admission. If they were in 30 days earlier for congestive heart failure, they may not get paid for coming back in with the same thing within 30 days. Also, Medicare is trying to move individuals to value-based care, which is meaning that the clinician has got to start reducing costs and increasing quality of care for them to get paid. And then alternative payment methods as well to give incentives to clinicians for making sure people are getting better along the way. Traditionally, remote patient monitoring, which is monitoring patients remotely at home instead of in the healthcare facility, is roughly about a $175 billion market by 2027 in the US. Life365's mission is remotely to connect large populations of patients outside the four walls of the hospital to acquire health-related data, vital signs, biomarkers, so we can run it through AI and machine learning to help prioritize and predict which patients need attention prior to heading to the emergency room. Our team has been together for the last 15 to 18 years. This is my third venture. The last venture we did called MedApps, which is the first Internet of Things and connecting medical devices together, sold for 30x revenue to a publicly traded company of doing a $5 billion publicly traded company called Alere. And we learned a lot during that last sell that we're going to have to be able to take care of more individuals under new care models of care with less resources. So we're going to have to start linking to people outside the hospital to get data. And with the advent of machine learning and AI that's out there, AI is going to allow us, if it has the right data, to be able to start surveilling patients from a distance and understanding and prioritizing who needs care instead of just randomly waiting till somebody goes to the emergency room and is hospitalized and incurring that cost. We want to move from reactive care to more proactive and preemptive care. And like I said before, 10,000 people per day are turning 65. and we're losing the number of healthcare resources. So we need to be able to use technology to start reaching greater populations of patients. Life365 has some key metrics in the time that we've been in business. We've been able to secure a patent portfolio. In fact, when I left the last company that we exited, I sat in an executive suite and filed 1,500 pages of provisional patents on connecting to the next generation of patients at home using AI, small sensors, going after large populations of patients to be able to get data from this to run through AI and machine learning systems. And we subsequently were granted those patents, which about 13 years of remaining on it. But the main patents are around AI-driven wearables and sensors, and there's roughly around 1,000 companies that actually are stepping on those patents today. We also realize that we're going to have to use lighter technology to get this data. We can't afford to ship out scales and blood pressure and pulse oximeters to every home that's out there, especially if we don't know who is going to be the next one heading to the emergency room and incurring costs. So partnerships like with Canary Speech that does voice biomarkers, or others that are doing facial acquisition of data using the camera, on the phone to be able to get biometric data, or the microphone to get voice biomarker data, is an early way to get data to fuel these AI and machine learning systems instead of shipping out all this equipment. So this partnership with Canary is going to be incredibly valuable. We've got a signed 8-year to 10-year contract for remote patient monitoring with the Veterans Administration it's under $1 billion contract split up between 4 companies. Our team's share is roughly $250 million. Our personal share of Life365 is $90 to $180 million in the first phase of that project, which is shipping out equipment to connect people. But we want to move into phase 2 quickly to move from 70,000 veterans to 700,000 veterans and make that, instead of a $1 billion contract, a $10 billion contract. So we've got what it takes, we believe, in connection with our patents and our relationship with partners like Canary and others, that we can take a great foothold into that larger population of veterans. We also have an exclusive relationship in remote patient monitoring on Microsoft Fabric, which is integrated into 1,000 different health systems. Part of the problem for health systems in trying to scale to larger populations is the fact that they have to take in individual vendors that are doing blood pressure or weight or glucometry or spirometry or other things for home. And it could actually take years to get integrations done, going through security and stuff. We interfaced over 500 different medical devices. We had then interfaced to Microsoft Fabric with the RPM Remote Patient Monitoring Connector, and now we have a Med connector that's getting ready to go in. That allows over 1,000 plus health systems in the US to interface one to Microsoft and then be able to get access to those 500 plus medical devices. So it's an incredible efficiency for the health systems. And then we believe our exit, it will come in the next, potentially even as early as the next 18 to 24 months or longer, depending on the marketplace. From that, we will exit to large healthcare enterprises that have a responsibility for reducing costs and connecting to patients remotely. They'll use our patent portfolio to block their competitors, or large system integrators like Microsoft, or cloud integrators like Microsoft, Google, or Amazon, or large retail establishments like Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, to be able to use our portfolio to take care of large populations of patients, but also have the same protection to block out competitors. So, one of the things that's important is the fact that new models of care are going to start to emerge, where analytic and AI systems are going to start needing to use data to understand how patients really live and operate. We've got electronic health record data, we've got claims data, we've got genomic data in the cloud already. And AI can bring that in to be able to learn from. But in order to completely understand what's going on with Kent Dix, we may look at your patterns based on what's happened with Kent in the past, And we can say last time Ken's blood pressure got above 160 or his SpO2 oxygen saturation went below 85, he was at the emergency room in the next 7 days. And we need to try to intervene. That's great for AI models, but the next thing you know is what is really happening with Kent today. So getting that near real-time data, that patient-generated data from Life365 and or Canary Speech as well, allows us to be able to go through and say, this is what's happening with Kent. And the last time I saw, his blood pressure get above 160 and his SpO2 below 85, he went to the emergency room. Let's do an early intervention now and try to stop, prioritize him high in the list and try to stop him from going to the emergency room in the future. It's proactive care, it's early insights. It allows for being able to do preemptive intervention instead of waiting until the patient's incurring cost. So we're very proud about our accomplishments. Our team has over 100 years plus of digital health experience. I myself have been in 18 years in digital health. I personally have testified in front of Congress regarding bringing new technology to veterans, especially in rural locations. I've also testified in front of the FDA, and I've also been on C-SPAN, Motley Fool, C-SPAN to be able to show new technology, especially in broadband initiatives in rural locations. We have a platform that's connected into AWS or Amazon, but also Azure with Microsoft. We interface to over 500 plus medical devices. We also have partners like Microsoft, Canary Speech, that allow us to get to over 1,000 plus health systems and hospitals. But also the patent portfolio that we have allows for us to be able to connect to intelligently connect through AI through wearable devices is valued at over $500 million. And also the fact that we have the VA, at least the starting phase one of the VA, which is worth $90 to $180 million to us, and a good opportunity to be able to go to phase two, which could be worth close to $500 million to $1 billion for our company as well, because of those partners and those blocking patent portfolio and our integration already into the back end of the VA, right, as well. So, our team, like I said, has been together, myself having over 18 years experience, Mario Vasso comes from the engagement side in healthcare. He has produced video and games around Duke Nukem, World of Warcraft, and has created multiple medical applications that are out there as well. Dr. Chapa has worked with one of our board members as the chief medical officer at Aetna Medicaid, where Tom Kelly on our board has worked as the chief executive officer for Aetna Medicaid. So a very robust partnership. Also, we've been part of accelerators for Mayo Clinic, ASU, Arizona State University, Plug and Play Universities, Comcast, NBC Universal, Lift Labs, and I personally have been part of the Microsoft Partners Advisory Council for healthcare. Our partnerships are very close to us. So we've recently signed a joint working agreement with JWA with Canary Speech to co-market and our patents together, but also commercialize our products together. And Henry O'Connell, CEO of Canary Speech, has become on part of our advisory team. Jay Roberts has joined us on the advisory team, is taking more an active role in our executive team as well, and comes from a clinical background, has raised over $750 million himself in the industry. Tom Kelly is on our board, previous CEO of Aetna Medicaid, Jerry Brockovich with ZRG Partners. Robin Arnsue is our follow-on investor from our previous ventures into this one, has put a significant amount of investment into the company. Jay Anderson comes from 35 years at IBM from an enterprise perspective. And then Jaco Resinen is an investor in the company, but also an early investor in WebMD, and highly believes in what we're doing, especially as an investor in Canary Speech as well, to allow us to be able to put the companies together and really have a sustainable platform to grow into a much bigger population of patients that are in remote regions, and also providing data into AI and machine learning models. So, I've talked a lot about this earlier, but I really like to show this diagram, which kind of shows the difference between where there's proactive care, health and wellness, and reactive care that's out there. On the left-hand side is really health and wellness. That was the Fitbits of the world when you showed up. It could take care of a lot of people wearing them, but very little people, it influenced very little people from a healthcare perspective. On the right-hand side is complex care, fewer people, but higher dollars from that standpoint. If you've been around remote patient monitoring for a while, and we don't consider ourselves a remote patient monitoring platform, most of the 300 or 400 remote patient monitoring systems that are in the US today that are slowly dissolving and going away because of lack of scalability and a lot of friction points that are not being addressed, like Life365 is addressing them. They wait until somebody gets sick and incurring costs that are out there, entering the emergency room in the hospital before they start monitoring a patient. So basically, it's in a reactive mode. We want to shift left, and we want to get into a higher degree of population that isn't spending a lot of dollars quite yet on healthcare. But we want to start shifting into voice assist to nudge people into compliance. We want to start using AI-driven disposable sensors that are cheap enough to send out with a patient to start getting data. This is all in an effort to get data to fuel AI and machine learning systems that they can look and watch this broader population of patients to know when they're getting ready to head in towards a more expensive state, right from that, and be able to catch them days and weeks in advance with fast response teams instead of using ambulance systems that are out there. So disposable sensors, our relationship with voice biomarkers, and then deviceless companies out there that are basically Canary using this, the microphone and potentially the camera on the phone or tablet to be able to capture biometric information or biomarker information. But the deviceless companies that are popping up to be able to capture using the camera to be able to capture biometric information. It could be heart rate variability, it could be temperature, it could be blood pressure, right, as well. And a lot of those companies still need to be FDA cleared from it, but there's a uniqueness in this platform which allows that data to come in to be able to be used by AI or machine learning, not being presented to the patient, not being presented to the clinician, but being able to see patterns that are emerging and then bringing that to somebody's attention so they can use FDA cleared devices to be able to monitor the patient and keep them out of the hospital going forward. Now, the only thing I point out at the bottom is the fact that we do have a subcontract agreement with the VA, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But that VA contract is for 8 years, and it was part of a $1 billion contract, which is really only addressing about 70,000 veterans. The VA wants to grow to 700,000 to 2 million veterans using the system, which could be a 10x of what they originally are spending in phase one. Phase two looks, much larger, but that's still out of 9 million veterans that go to the VA every single year. We've got to think outside the box. We've got to use VA innovation to try to gain access to a greater population of veterans. And this is the reason why I spoke in front of Congress or House Subcommittee on Veterans Affairs many years ago, showing lighter technology, wireless cellular-driven technology, to be able to connect to veterans remotely, instead of, especially in rural regions, to be able to get data and early indications that something's starting to build and go wrong. Because most likely when people are not connected to their clinician, especially in rural areas where it takes 3 or 4 hours to get to a clinician, they're not going to go to their doctor, and they're going to exacerbate their disease state, which means that it's going to be a lot more costly in the future to try to intervene with them. So the typical kit that we'll show, like in a phase one, we showed in remote patient monitoring on this, especially for the VA, is we're developing a tablet-like system that can ask questions from a disease management protocol, both, the ability to touch the tablet and answer the question, how do you feel? Did you eat last night? Did you take your medication? Are you in pain? And then also the biometric readings that are connected through Bluetooth devices like Bluetooth scales or blood pressure or pulse ox, any one of those 500 different medical devices, glucometers for diabetes, to combine that information from the disease management questionnaires and the biometric devices and send the data to the cloud to be analyzed to prioritize care. And it could alert a caregiver with the VA to go through and contact you because there's an issue. And they want to do this in advance before you start showing symptoms that require you to go to the emergency room or to the hospital. So in this, we want to identify the right patients to put on the platform that the care coordinators choose. We want to roll them into our system, into our backend system, our clinical system. We want to logistically ship out devices. We don't create medical devices. We use FDA cleared devices. The VA in this case would ship the devices out to the patient. The patient would be set up in the system, maybe an early training session with them. And then the care coordinators at the VA would be able to go out and monitor for that. And if we're in a situation where there's reimbursement for this, where there are reimbursement codes for remote patient monitoring in a normal clinical setting, like with a doctor, not the VA, then a doctor or clinician actually could bill for those services for monitoring a patient remotely from a distance. We also approach the marketplace to go after people that are financially responsible for the patient population. So large health systems and hospitals that potentially are looking for CPT or billing codes that are out there to be able to bill for remote patient monitoring or remote therapeutic monitoring or chronic care management, to be able to monitor patients from a distance. Health plans that are trying to sustain their membership or increase the quality of care with their membership, but also reduce cost. And then provider organizations to be able to provide new innovative forms of remote care, like hospital at home, for patients, and be able to bill on that as well. Now, one thing that we're very proud of that I touched on is our relationship with Microsoft. And Microsoft has got Microsoft Fabric, which sits in the middle, Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare. The interface to over 1,000 plus health systems that are out there. This one integration to Life365 allows the health systems that they're connected to through Azure to be able to get access to any of the data in the patient's home on remote patient monitoring by just that one simple RPM connection through Life365 and the Fabric network. So it saves a considerable amount of integration, security, time to be able to get to market with a health system by doing that integration with Microsoft. So just very simply from this, we've taken a lot of time and thinking about how we try to engage with the patient. And we want to create a common platform that brings in a number of devices and solutions. Now to you might see from this picture, maybe even confusion because there's a lot of different solutions. But what we want to do is show a simple application where we can take data from a scale, or we can use our pill drill medication system to get data from medication adherence. Or, we talked about tiny disposable sensors like moving and shifting left. Our acquisition of Affirm XH, which is a sensor company, a little tiny sensor the size of a guitar pick that actually can take temperature, heart rate variability, and motion, all from a simple inserted coin cell battery. It could last for up to 6 months. Simple things that allow us to be able to bring rapid diagnostics in the home, or use voice assist for engagement, or integrate to wearable devices that are out there. A lot of this make very, very simple way for patients to connect to the cloud and to their healthcare provider. And then also on top of that, it can be highly personalized to the individual, but it also falls under our patent portfolio from talking to wearable devices that communicate with medical devices and sending the data to the cloud, but also being able, through a combination of these devices, to get data to feed into AI and machine learning system, which is incredibly valuable to do. So, the next thing I want to kind of go over is the fact that I've talked about our patent portfolio from this. And our patent portfolio is we feel is incredibly robust. If you put that patent portfolio next to somebody like Canary Speech, the combination of the two companies working together, which again, we have the joint working agreement, allows us to be able to almost control that middle of the hump that we talked about, where a lot of patients are, in scaling to a much broader population of patients from that. So we've got patents. One of the major patents we have is any wearable device that's out there that communicates with an implantable device, a rapid diagnostic, an OEM medical device for diabetes or glucometer or scale or blood pressure. That is basically our patent. It's a very broad patent in the space, and for our acquirer, for our partners, it gives a lot of protection in the space from a very, very large potential to scale to those larger populations of patients that are remote in order to increase compliance, increase access to care, reduce costs in the future. We can't sustain a $4.5 to $6 trillion healthcare spend by 2027. We've got to use data and AI and ML to reach this broader population of patients to control costs, especially since we're getting older and we're seeing a lot more healthcare professionals leaving the industry. We've got to deliver care a different way. Additionally, and I don't mean to keep on bringing up Canary, but this is kind of more of a Canary focused, presentation with Life365. It allows us to be able to go through and start creating unified platforms together that provide healthcare professionals, large organizations like Teladoc and telehealth organizations out there, to be able to do remote telehealth visits. Remember, when the pandemic occurred, it was really the only way you could see a doctor is do a telehealth visit. But that is starting to spread. The popularity is spreading of trying to do telehealth visits out there. But when a doctor brings up and starts looking at somebody like Sue, they don't know. They've never had a relationship with Sue before, so they don't know if Sue is normal or not. When my parents were living, I could pick up the phone and to my parents and go, "My dad sounds great today. My mom sounds off," because I have that history with them to be able to do that. But a doctor doesn't. But by using Life365 data, by using our other partner data, by using Canary Speech data that's out there as well, we can actually start going through and understand if Sue is normal or not normal, and maybe even give some type of score towards it, so they don't have to spend a lot of time, from trying to find a baseline with Sue. As far as competitors are concerned, it is a very competitive space in RPM, but a lot of competitors are starting to leave the space because they haven't done what Life365's done in partnering with the other side to shift left into lighter. They haven't been enabling AI and machine learning out there as well. But our main competitors, do not have an exclusive relationship with Microsoft. They certainly don't have the RPM contract for the next 8 years. There are four of us, large company. There are four companies that are splitting up that $1 billion that's out there. But Life365 is one of the only one of those four that has the patents and the technology to scale into a much, much bigger opportunity, into something that's 10x what we're doing in phase one of this. We also have, the strategic patents for scaling into medical devices and for wearable devices. And we integrate to over 500 different medical devices. We also do remote kits integrated into the clinical backend system. So there's a lot of things, and starting partner with voice biomarker and facial acquisition companies as well. So there's some things that really set us apart. The ones that are starting to go into the middle of the hump, like I'll mention maybe like Bioformus and BioIntelliSense, a lot of those, even Best Buy, are concentrated on very specific disease states. Like BioIntelliSense really is really trying to go after cardiac disease states from that standpoint. But again, do not have our patent portfolio or our relationship with the VA or with Microsoft as well. So we're in a much, much better position to scale for the future. And I think this is the last slide, but one of the things I wanted to kind of go through and show is, revenue that's already contracted this year. We've signed the subcontract agreement with the VA. It's for the next 8 years. It's part of the 250 million, a billion split between 4 companies that we do for our company. Our share is between 90 to 180 million. So roughly, we're doing 11 to 22 million dollars per year, right, from that as well. But we also have systems that we have from our medication adherence system, our pill drill system for adherence. If you want to look at it, it's on pilldrill.com. And then our relationship with Canary Speech and joint selling. We think that in the next 24 months, that could arrange to about $10 million. And then we have some smaller proof of concepts. So, it could arrange from stuff that's already contracted or already spoken for between 24 to $35 million. And in our industry, exits go from anywhere of 12 to about 15 times revenue. We'll go ahead and get the 15 times revenue because of our patent portfolio being issued, right? And because of the VA contract and because of Microsoft. In fact, we may have, actually, my last exit was at 30x revenue. This one maybe even goes up to 20x revenue from that as well. If you look at future revenue and potential revenue, again, trying to get into that phase 2 of the VA, trying to get into a bigger position with Microsoft, especially with Canary Speech and that, starting to take in IP licensing and enforcement with it. This is where we could start growing to be a company in a very short time frame that's worth $2.6 billion from that type of revenue in the next probably 2 to 3 years. And then potential revenue from our data insights, from data flowing through our system, or shared savings programs, or our sensors, or our wearables, retail drug chains payers, large self-insured employers. So there's a lot of places where we either have contracted or potential contracted revenue that's out there as well. We believe next year that we'll do roughly around 4.6 million in revenue, mainly coming from the VA contract. We're going to start generating revenue in March of this year, March of 2025. We're right now going through what's called authority to operate, so ATO, which means that we're working with our team to get all the integration, security, all the stuff needed to be able to start putting veterans on the system. That integration or that ATO should be done by December of this year, and then testing between December and March of 2025. And we're already doing proactive marketing. You can go out to valorrpm.com. That's VALORRPM.com to start looking at some of the preemptive marketing that we're doing to bring in the VISNs in to choose our solution. And then the following year in 26, about 12.7 million, 24 million, and 49 million. These are our conservative numbers based on what I just showed you. But it's conservative if we're only doing ourselves, if we're not really bringing in Canary, and we're really not going into Microsoft that big or into phase 2 of the VA. So as you can see, the potential is huge, right, going forward with this. As far as our investment is concerned, we are closing out our series, our Safe Note, our Series A1 with between $2.5 to $3 million. That $2.5 to $3 million is pegged towards building out the VA launch. Right from that, it's bringing in the right team to get the right solutions put in place so we can start putting veterans on the system. The open equity round is allowing us to be able to go through and start building out other aspects of our system to split out the patent portfolio from 9 patents to 30 or 40 patents, to build out our medication adherence side, to build out our relationship with Microsoft. All of this is very synergistic together to go after data to fuel AI and machine learning systems. That's one thing you should have got from the presentation over and over again. We are an engagement and data platform to try to go get that data and bring it back to the AI, so the AI becomes relevant in what it does. And then from an exit perspective, we see ourselves exiting to either a large healthcare system, a payer, a retail drug chain, one of the wearables companies or large integrated companies, Amazon, Google, AWS, Microsoft, and then the telehealth companies that are out there as well. Anybody that needs to connect to a large population of patients to be able to go through and provide new models of care and reduce cost or increase revenue into them. So I want to thank you for joining me today on this presentation. If you have any questions whatsoever, please contact me at kent.dix@life365.ai. That's kent.dix@life365.ai, and I can answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.